Right on time? All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our panel today, Packaging and the Road to Sustainability. This is going to be a great session. We've got a great audience. We were just talking that we are surprised at the engaged in large audience size. So welcome. We've got a really good panel today. I'm excited. My name's Derek Sabori. I'm in the sustainability space as a sustainability educator, doing some consulting, but really training. And this is an exciting topic, I think, and it's something that is consumer-facing, brands are struggling with. We've got a nice, diverse panel today. We've got brands, we've got solution providers, we've got hard goods makers, we've got retailers. So we've got a little bit of everybody dealing with and struggling with packaging issues. So today, our hope is to really have a discussion on how we can sort of transition away from unsustainable packaging, solve some of the solutions that we're facing, move more towards sustainable solutions. But there's a lot of moving parts, so we're going to get through them all. And what we really wanted to do is just have kind of a cross-functional team. So I'm going to go through, don't have any existing agendas necessarily, no presentations. We're just going to have a conversation on challenges, solutions, and things that we're hearing about there. So we'll try to leave room for some questions at the end. So, but our goal today is how can we move the needle faster on sustainable packaging? So, quick round of introductions. I'll start here right next to me. This is Jen Gurecki. She's the founder and CEO of Coalition Snow. That's a woman-owned and operated ski and snowboard brand out of Tahoe, California, Reno and Tahoe. Builds gear and snowboard and ski equipment for communities to unleash the skills and expand experiences, founded in 2014. So we're excited to have you, Jen. Thank you very much. We also have Colleen Burns, Director of Sourcing and Private Label Goods for Backcountry.com, an online specialty retailer selling outdoor gear and clothing from big brands to small and undiscovered brands. And then we've got Tumas Laakso. He's the VP of Product Operations. The world's most advanced skis, DPS skis, founded in 2005. They're based right here in Salt Lake City, making the perfect skis worthy of those who live and breathe the sport, made right here locally. Thanks, Tumas. And then we've got Wes Carter, a New Earth Project founder, the president of Atlantic Packaging. And a New Earth Project is an initiative of Atlantic Packaging. It's a catalyst to build awareness, increase education, inspire action, and really have strategic collaboration between outdoor enthusiasts and global packaging suppliers. So their goal is to rid the world's oceans, lakes, and rivers of plastic pollution. So Wes has a lot of great solutions with the New Earth Project. And then lastly, there at the end, we have Matt Gowar. He's the CEO of UK-based RAB Equipment. Rugged, high-performance mountain clothing and equipment that gives you absolute protection, comfort, and freedom on the trail or peak. So we've got a nice, diverse, and robust panel here. I want to start with maybe going down the line here and getting a sense of what your stake is in this. Why are you here? What are you dealing with packaging? What do you need packaging for? Maybe, Jen, if you could, give us a little sense of what's the 30,000-foot level on packaging needs from your perspective.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as a hard goods brand, we sell skis and snowboards, and anyone who buys skis and snowboards knows that they come wrapped in plastic. And there's an absolute need to wrap them in something because you have metal edges that will destroy top sheets and other items. And so they need something, but then you also need to display them. So I have been trying to figure out a solution to not wrap our skis and snowboards in plastic, and I've been talking about it for years and have not been able to actually get very far with it, and we're really committed to eliminating all single-use plastic, and that's the only piece we haven't been able to do, really. So that's what we're working on.
Got it. Tumas, can I jump to you? Same thing? I mean, is it a similar space for you? Similar conversation?
Yeah, feel your pain totally, very similar. And our mission is to eliminate single-use plastics in our hard goods and our soft goods. And if we can't do that, let's reduce our dependency on petroleum. And so there's what's your silver bullet we were talking about? You know, we haven't found it, but at least we're doing positive steps forward. If we can keep things, if it has to be wrapped in plastic, can that plastic stay out of the landfill? Can it biodegrade faster? Or if none of that, can it at least be less petroleum-based? And most of our packaging is like 45% bio-based polymers. So we're making positive steps forward, but it'll be fun to discuss even expectations of the consumer. The consumer has a big play in this. Our customers, our dealers, or even the end consumer. Why does that have to look perfect when you drive it off the lot and it's not perfect after that?
Colleen, is that the same for you? Moving over to soft goods, I know you guys do a lot of soft goods, having the same issues though, facing the same challenges.
Yep, so coming from backcountry, we do hard goods, soft goods. I work in the own brands department. I came into the outdoor industry from a fast fashion retailer because I just saw everything that this industry is doing. You said silver bullet, definitely. I think we have a large crowd here today because everyone is looking for that silver bullet solution. I go almost a different angle. I do so much development with my team, so we do it from not just at our DC level, but everything that starts from the very beginning throughout the whole phase. There's a lot of waste through that, so looking forward to actually deep diving into that later too.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good conversation to have, sort of the B2B packaging space and then B2C. There's kind of packaging at every step. Matt, from you in the UK, same thing, any different challenges, or are you struggling? Do you think you're further ahead than what's going on over here? How do you feel?
I don't think we're struggling. We do have what we see as a workable solution. Yes, packaging is a necessary evil. We have to deliver a product to a consumer, whether that's via a wholesale retailer in a B2B or direct to a consumer. We have to deliver a product to them in a condition that they want, and that packaging is all about delivering that product to them. So we have to meet those expectations, but we think we've got some pretty good ideas that I'm here to represent some progressive ideas that we've pioneered in Europe together with the European Outdoor Group, where we think we've got workable solutions. It's a compromise, it always is, but we think we've developed a pretty good compromise.
That's good, great to hear. We'll dive into those. Wes, you're working with a lot of different brands. Are you hearing anything beyond what we're talking about today? Same story across the board, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's the outdoor industry or really any other industry, because at Atlantic Packaging, we support pretty much every industry vertical. Everyone, to some degree or another, is facing the same challenges. And so everything I just heard, I mean, we are working at Atlantic and with the New Earth Project to be the answer to all of those questions. And I say this frequently, we don't have all the answers, but innovation and collaboration are two of the biggest ones. And so we're here as a resource and a major packaging company with a focus on technology to create solutions that quite honestly have not existed before.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I mean, it's going to take collaboration. It's going to take the entire system working together. None of us can do this on our own. Do any of you have packaging as a goal, a target, part of your sustainability strategy? Have you prioritized it and made it something where, hey, we are tackling this specifically? Jen, yeah?
Yeah, well, it was relatively easy for us to start with our apparel and with the mailers, the packaging that we use there. So we don't use any plastic with that. And we're fortunate because we don't sell that at wholesale. So this is where you run into an issue that if all the retailers that you sell to, they all expect your product to come to them in a certain way. And so we've decided that our apparel we will not offer on wholesale because then we can actually control the way that it's shipped because we do all of our own fulfillment as well. So we don't use any plastic in that as well.
Basically because you can control it and you're not at the mercy of anybody else. Anybody else at the mercy, though, of other retailers or other expectations that you have from your retailers, perhaps?
Yeah, one of the inspirations is just simply to keep things out of the garbage, but also REI, one of our key customers, they're like, here's a mandate. This is what you need to be doing, and they're a key customer. So, often these solutions have a financial responsibility and effect, and that was a great one where, they mandated some changes, we made changes, and the next year they're like, wow, you actually did something. A lot of companies talked about it, and you guys are doers. Here's our new PO, and that was helpful for us to go, okay, we inherently just want to just always do better in every part of the factory and packaging to the product to brand and everything, but that's one of the pieces where this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Matt and Colleen, I'd like to get your perspective because one, I wonder from backcountry, is that something that you push onto your suppliers at all? Is it something that you have talked about? And then maybe Matt, from you as well in the UK, do you have wholesalers that are putting pressure on you to package better, meet certain standards? Colleen, I'll start with you.
Yes, so within our suppliers, we do ask certain packaging. At Backcountry, we don't talk a lot. We don't publicize a lot of the sustainability that we do, but that we do so much in the background. We really hire people that it's in their DNA, how they act each day in and out. At the DC, we have upgraded our equipment to make it more efficient. We have been testing going from poly bags to paper, but then the perception is that paper is better than plastic, but it takes more water to recycle the paper. So do you feed that perception or do you educate the consumer? So we've been spending years working with our DC VP of fulfillment. We have a VP of ESG, and we really tackle these issues internally because it does come down to cost, efficiency, and just what that impact is. And we are getting ready to publish results later in the year.
Wes, you're probably chomping at the bit for that one because I know you've got a lot of thoughts on that. I really quickly though want to get Matt's perspective on that from your expectations from your brands, retailers, others. Any pressure that you're feeling, or?
So we've also seen the pressure of the REI output, but we have a very different view on plastic. I mean, primarily it's plastic and the move away from plastic, which is what people are concerned about. So the problem with plastic is, it is a great solution, but it's not recyclable at a consumer-based level. It is at a brand level. So our retailers in the UK love us shipping plastic to them because they recycle it and they get paid for recycling it. It is a commodity. So rather than being charged 10 cents if you ship in bags, they collect the bags and they recycle it because it is a solution, a very, very, very good solution. And I know that is probably heresy sitting here. It's a very good solution for delivering product very efficiently in a very low carbon way to retailers. The problem is when it leaves that. So we have a solution where we proudly ship all of our product in polythene to our wholesale customers, but we strip it all off when we sell D2C. It's the simplest solution. One comment, and I know I've said this before, is it's all very well saying we don't want plastic to go into the ocean, but if we've allowed those oceans to rise in temperature, the fish are going to be dead anyway. So if we stripped off and used paper, which is very carbon intensive, even at recycled level, we're going to have a different problem. This won't be about plastic and sustainable packaging. It will be about what are we going to do about global warming. So all you do is just move the product. It's very easy to move a problem onto someone else. You've got to deal with the end-to-end solution and the problem.
Yeah, Wes, go ahead. I know you've got some different thoughts, and I know this is a complicated conversation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
thanks for that, Matt.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that the carbon perspective and discussion is one that's really important to understand. I think it's, first of all of the packaging on the whole planet doesn't make up, it's less than 1% of our total carbon emissions. So we are not going to save the planet from global warming by choosing plastic over paper. The way we are going to decarbonize is through energy. It is through transitioning off of fossil fuels. It's the energy that fuels our businesses, our transportation. That's where it's going to come from. And when you look at the paper industry as an example, the paper industry is already very circular globally. We recycle paper really, really well, and there is a market for paper. Paper mills want paper back. Fiber, there's a market for, and economics do matter. And so when you talk to people in the paper industry, decarbonizing the paper industry is going to be a lot easier than making plastic circular. And we also have to acknowledge that, especially in direct-to-consumer, somewhere around 8 or 9% of all of the packaging that is shipped direct-to-consumer ends up in the environment. And leakage is just a reality, especially in that direct-to-consumer route. And so we have to acknowledge that if it ends up in somebody's house, some of it is going to end up in the environment. If it's paper, it's gone in 8 to 12 weeks. If it's plastic, 400 years. So I do believe there are certain areas of our supply chain where plastic packaging does make sense. B2B shipments, to the point that Rob was making, I'm sorry, Matt, I just called you Rob because I'm sure. To the point that Matt was making, we do support plastic packaging between businesses because closing that loop is easier. Closing the loop at human beings' homes is way, way harder. And so we have to be very analytical about how we're looking at these things. But to me, especially in the direct-to-consumer part of our supply chain, we have great fiber-based solutions. It's the low-hanging fruit for every brand here. And Jen brought it up earlier. When you're looking at the things that you're shipping direct-to-consumer, they're fiber-based options that are curbside recyclable, that if they end up in the environment, they will biodegrade in a short amount of time. Those solutions exist, and it is very low-hanging fruit. So long answer to your question.
No, it's a good answer, though. Tumas, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple comments on that, and I'm glad to hear that I guess the carbon footprint accounts for about 1% in our calculate. We're a manufacturer, we build skis, and it's a little bit, I feel a little bit ironic just sitting on this bench here, because 0.8% of our footprint is packaging at DPS, and that's something we need to improve everywhere, but that's, the energy required to build the skis, the shipping, those are some big meter movers, but that's not to say we need less things to end up in the landfill for sure. So it's not always the carbon footprint, but just the impact there. But the second thing, I sometimes feel a little meek explaining, but my degree is in plastics engineering, and I feel like plastics needs it's got a PR issue. You say the word plastic now, and at the time I studied reinforced plastics and composites, but there is a bit of a PR problem. If this is a conversation between plastic and paper, but I don't know what the answer is. But I do agree. When skis get unpacked, that cardboard is going somewhere. I know it's getting recycled. When it's going in our biodegradable, compostable packaging, the industry is not there yet. And to really do an effective job to do industrial composting, we're doing it because A, it's reducing our dependency on petroleum, and B, we want to be a part of expanding technology, being an early adopter and helping the ecosystem. And it's not the final solution yet, at least we're doing something.
Any paper plastic down here conversation?
I think it's important to think about the cultural relevance and different socioeconomic statuses when we talk about plastic versus paper. For a lot of communities, plastic is something that means you have made it to a point where you can buy something from a store. And so when we think about a global market and global consumers, there is cachet in having a plastic bag. And so I think having this conversation that that there are some of us who are very comfortable with not having plastic because we've already experienced having that, and now we want to divest from it. But for a lot of communities, having plastic means you've made it, that you can afford more things. And so I think part of it too is what is the language that we use, and what are the ways that we talk about this, and then also make sure that we're delivering a product to a customer that makes them feel valued and like that their money was spent well. And so you have very different customers in that as well.
Interesting. It's a really fascinating point and a good one. I think it's funny for some of us when you buy things now, seeing paper packaging almost has an elevated status as well, for maybe in some cases, right? But I see your point really good. That's an interesting point. Colleen, anything to add to that?
I had a thought when you were saying earlier, by different countries, and it is going along with what you're saying of just habits by country. And, it seems like it's way better in Europe where you're collecting your plastics and going and recycling them. And is that the norm in America? Can't speak for everyone, right? That's personal behavior of what you're going to do. Do you take plastics in the store? Do you bring them back, or do you bring your own tote bag? It was something I've been thinking about a lot in the past week of just behavior within America itself. Of we put a lot on companies to find the solution, but do we also need to be putting it out there that it is within your own personal and how you're going to act to the packaging world, and not just putting the responsibility on packaging companies to come up with solutions?
Definitely.
You should put it all on companies. Yeah, I actually think that there's far too much pressure put on individuals when we know that the issue are large corporations. We should absolutely be holding large corporations run by incredibly wealthy white men accountable, and they should be fixing everything for us. And then they should thank us for having them do that.
And so
that was your spice, Brooke.
There we go. And so we moved to the idea of extended producer responsibility, which is really good. Wes, do you want to add something? I see you jumping on there.
Yeah, speaking as a white man who owns a business, I actually completely agree with that. I think there is far too much of the pointing at the consumers and individuals about their behavior. I mean, yes, there's certain things like we all should carry a water bottle. You know, there's certain things like that. But thinking that as individual human beings, we're going to change our day-to-day behavior enough to have a global, this is a supply chain problem. And that is one of the reasons, as the largest packaging company in North America, or privately held one anyway, we are trying to be a part of that solution, saying, hey, supply chain, we are the problem. And that was the reason I started a New Earth Project, is that realization that I was a part of the supply chain that was causing all these problems. And if the supply chain didn't wake up and shift, it didn't matter what else happened. You know, and so again, I absolutely believe this is about companies delivering products and packaging to consumers that they don't have to decide what to do with. They already know. We create circularity within the supply chain, and then the human beings don't have to change their behaviors, because it's just a reality. We're not going to solve these problems one human being at a time.
So let the people go about their business. Matt, go ahead. That's good.
Sure. Yes. Just to clarify, what we're proposing is that the plastic stays within the business-to-business loop. Consumers, you're right. Even in Europe, a standard polyethylene bag cannot be recycled at consumer level. It's only at business or industrial level. So at consumer level, we're advocating that there is no packaging, because at that point there doesn't need to be any. There is no paper bag, there just is no bag, which is way better than even a paper bag. So nothing is better than a paper-based solution, but it's using that plastic and keeping that plastic within a loop where it can be reused and recycled very easily. And that's what we've been advocating.
Yeah, that's good. I want to move a little bit to sort of operations and maybe a pragmatic approach to all this, because I know it can get tough trying to decide plastic or paper, emissions, deforestation, certification, which one are we dealing with? But when it comes to your operations, how are you able to, is anybody quantifying, tracking progress, saying, hey, at one point we were using X amount of plastic, over the last few years we've used less, measuring, each of you mentioned some statistics, measuring impacts. Who else, anybody having progress with quantifying data, capturing data, how many poly bags, how much, tonnage, et cetera? Matt, you're shaking your head. Go ahead.
In the UK, we have to fill in a governmental report to say exactly how many kilos or pounds of plastic paper we use a year, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but it is a legal requirement for us to fill it. It's mandated.
Got it.
But to give you an idea, we recycled last year just short of a ton of polythene bags, and that's what only a very small part of our sales are direct to consumer, but that's what we stripped off before we shipped to consumers.
And thanks. And Tumas, go ahead.
Yeah, I mentioned 0.8%, in terms of a carbon footprint, but more important to us, we change our philosophy. We try to make beautiful skis that are timeless, and we spend a lot of money and energy delivering that. But then the best solution for packaging was this opaque bio content, and it looks like a mummy, and it hides everything. And it's like, well, that's the right thing to do. But what we're also able to do is, rather than individually wrapping each ski, we're like, well, we're covered them all up, so we do a single wrap, and we reduced our plastic by 50%. So as you were saying, less is better, and none is even best. But that was one way of measuring. Well, at least that 1.5. And people wonder about what are some of the costs of the right decision. Well, we cut our use in half. That's helping us. And we're working on some experimental things that you were talking a little bit about. What's the feeling of getting something that's in plastic or paper? A lot of our world, there's other influencers out there that we should be talking about, not just the white professional, business owner, but he works with Kai Lenny, and whatever he does, I'm going to do. And when I saw that he was working on surfboards and packaging with a New Earth, I was like, can we do that with skis? So I bring that up because that packaging should be lower cost to ship. Shipping by volume and doing more net shaped, that's one of the big reasons that we're interested.
Go ahead, Wes. Or yeah, go ahead.
I'll make this comment quick, but that's exactly right. When we originally started a New Earth project, we focused on surfboard packaging initially, and surfboard packaging was tons of single-use plastic, bubble wrap, foam, you name it, polypropylene tape. It was not very attractive. It took 20 minutes to pack a surfboard. They got a lot of damage, and it was expensive to ship. So We wanted to go to a fully curbside recyclable fiber-based shipping solution, but we also wanted it to look better and present better and protect the board better. And we were able to do all those things. We also were able, through what we call packaging optimization, to reduce the dimensional weight of the shipping container, and the savings on the freight offset the cost of going to fiber. So it was, and we also took the pack time from 20 minutes to 4 minutes. So for the surfboard guys, they hit on every single cylinder. And so when we are looking at packaging optimization, especially for hard goods like skis and snowboards and difficult items, we're not just looking at the materials, we're looking at the entire packaging process, all of it, to try to optimize every place we can and offset costs so we can have more sustainable solutions that are also economical. Because I like to say this a lot too, if it costs too much, it's not very sustainable because no one's going to use it. So we have to look at the whole scenario when we're evaluating packaging.
Yeah, Wes's the New Earth Project has a lot of great videos and a lot of great storytelling, and I really appreciate that scientific approach to it, to trying to offset it kind of holistically. Colleen, for you guys as a big retailer, what are the challenges you might face, though, when it comes to, Wes mentioned cost, so we know cost and weight, et cetera. What are some of the challenges that you guys face trying to be more sustainable in packaging?
Cost. Labor, time. So it takes time to test out the new methods of, I was talking about paper versus plastic. We don't have the machines that can automatic bag paper. So I love what you were just saying, how you save the time and cost here, so then you can put it here. And it takes time to run all those different scenarios. It's really labor and cost is what it's been coming down to. That's where we're stuck right now. And very happy to now be in touch with Brooke and Wes, and to be able to partner with them at Backcountry. So very much looking forward to how we can also do better.
Yeah. Jen, when you guys made that hard decision to change, were there challenges that you faced or damages, et cetera, anything that was difficult in making some of the changes that you did?
I mean, I felt like the changes were easy because I said, let's just do it. This is what we're doing now. I think it's getting your team on board. So I manage humans. They make me meditate every day and then also day drink. And so 22-year-olds. I love people in their 20s, though. I do. And so it's really hard to get people on board. Like even in our retail store, like we recycle everything. We have all these bins, and every day I'm like in the store pulling things out of bins and then calling my team over. Do you see that this is in the wrong bin? It's supposed to go in put this in, and you do that, and then you are like the naggy old lady, and you're like, this is just my lot in life now. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what's hard, is like actually getting everybody to maybe care as much as you, and to be very thoughtful in what they do at work, because it's really easy to just kind of go through the day and not necessarily like prioritize it the way that I do. So I think that's it was easy to shift from like poly bags and move over, and we don't use plastic tape for our boxes. Like that was all pretty easy, but it's getting your whole team on board and getting them to do it consistently, I think, is probably hard. And so I can only imagine, like we're such a small team, I can only imagine like at Backcountry when you're dealing, I have 10 employees, less than 10 employees, like that's hard.
Changing culture, getting people on board.
Backcountry was built to be, almost an Amazon, a third-party seller, to get everything out there, and they were built up a certain way, and now they're changing their business model, but they have become so large. So now you have so many teams, machinery, personnel to change out. I think that's a huge challenge where, smaller companies, you can be a little more nimble. Being on the own brands team at Backcountry, we are a smaller portion of Backcountry, and we're looking to grow that team. And I was very excited to join Backcountry because we can be a little more nimble. And I work with the VP of Fulfillment and try and experiment the best we can without affecting the flow. But, a lot of us, I'm looking at some of my teammates here, we bring in packaging from other companies and talk about that a lot, of like, this is what they're doing, this is what they're doing. Can we at least just test this out with our own brands and see if we can make that a possibility?
Yeah, and there are probably challenges for bigger brands and small brands. I mean, there's either way you look at it, whether you're a big brand or a small brand, there are going to be challenges. Any thoughts on that? Wes, what have you seen from the customers you're working with? Is it easier for smaller brands or bigger brands to adopt these solutions that you have for them?
Yes and no. I mean, larger brands typically have more capital resources, so when it comes to automating, they can afford to automate. I mean, that's a big advantage for the larger brands. But to Colleen's point, yes, I mean, larger brands who have all that infrastructure in place and in many cases are running 24/7, moving from a plastic air pillow to paper void fill and all the machines and training all the operators. It's a process. But I do see, that one of the things that shifted a lot, and some people referenced it, I mean, packaging is becoming more of a brand attribute than it's ever been before. I think on the backside of COVID, the amount of packaging awareness with consumers is at an all-time high. And I think more and more brands are looking at, I think we're being judged ethically on how we're packaging our products. So that's been a great catalyst for this shift. Another thing Colleen said, one area that we see a lot of larger companies struggle with is the automation piece. Plastic packaging has been working on automation for 3 decades, and we got that down really well. And plastic, it automates well. It's so flexible. It runs across equipment really smoothly. It cuts and seals really, really well. And so, but one of the great things in our industry is because of this demand for fiber-based solutions, I've never seen so much innovation in our industry. So even in things I already know about, there are some automated paper bagging solutions coming to market in 2023 that are really, really significant. We're really excited about. So I do believe the supply chain putting pressure on packaging companies to bring those solutions to market, those solutions are going to become very evident in the coming years.
And accessible, it sounds like, to any brand.
And again, not to plug Atlantic, but for any small brand or medium or large brand, if you're looking to evaluate these solutions, talk to us because we will help you evaluate these options and see what works best for you, where there's not a huge cost in the beginning.
Yeah. Matt and Tumas, I want to get perspectives from you on how you're perceived. What are you hearing from customers? Tumas, I'll start with you. Have they demanded better packaging? Do they thank you? Do they appreciate what you're doing? What kind of feedback do you get from customers?
I think that's a great point about that's the first interface you have with your customer is your packaging. And too long I've treated it as just a transportation need. But that we're not great storytellers, but that contact with a customer, they don't know that, hey, maybe we chose in our supply chain a more expensive material that came domestically and versus buying it with air or ship. And they don't know all the stories that make up every little thing we do to get better. But that packaging is something that's tangible, is visible technology and visible presence of the effort you're making. So that's, I don't know if that answered your question, but from the consumer standpoint, I think that's more and more demanded by today's consumer. It's just not, hey, are we doing the right thing? It's like we have to listen to our customers, and if you don't have that chance to tell all the different stories of what you do behind the scenes, this is your chance.
Definitely. Matt, same for you?
So in our direct consumer shipping, we actually strip off all the poly bags, but we also put in, ironically, another bit of packaging, a small card to say, did you notice anything missing? And consumers have the opportunity when they're placing their web order, they can tick a box to receive it in plastic if they want. So it's a kind of negative opt-in if you want to put it that way. And almost, I think, less than sort of 1 in 1,000 orders are ever shipped in plastic. So it's just the messaging. It's a simple card, pretty small, like a business card size. It just says, notice something missing.
But that messaging, I think, is so important. Go ahead, Tumas.
I want to employ that right away because something I struggle with is just the packaging is to deliver a beautiful product that has no scratches, has no dust on it, and is perfect. And 10 minutes later, it's not perfect. So you spend all that effort to do that. Maybe there is a chance for the consumer to go, you know what? I buy used gear all the time, and it's not perfect. Maybe there is some lower standards that we don't have to do completely sealed, and our shift to fiber. Okay, there might be we're having to use felt spacers just as things are traveling. You got to prevent abrasion. Well, it's going to be there in a second, so maybe we could do that.
I mean, soft goods, apparel is so much easier because it's forgiving. So, I mean, luckily I don't ship hard goods, so it's not a problem that we see. But yes, you do get, but it is in just that less than a last mile. It goes from a shipping station, the polybag's taken off, it goes into a paper mailer. So at that point, the risk is pretty low. But yeah, it is about education of consumers. If they want it absolutely pristine, they need to go to a store to pick it up.
Go ahead, Colleen.
Since you've had that implemented, do you ever see returns due to maybe scuff marks
And damages. I was going to ask the same thing.
I guess insignificant amount. The biggest thing is then if someone returns a product, you've then got to decide what you do with that inside your warehouse. Do you put it back in a bag or do you strip it out? So we've ended up with different pick bins for direct consumer to wholesale so that the direct consumer product is in a cleaner environment so it doesn't get dirty if it comes back. So the biggest thing is returns. So actually internal staff orders we ship in polythene because then if it comes back it's easier to store, but we can recycle it through the office.
It almost starts to become sort of a mathematical equation, because I think a lot of times when brands are trying to eliminate a poly bag, for example, we have to take into consideration how does it move along the conveyor belt in your warehouse, who's picking it, how's it being stored, how have we convinced the customer that a little bit of scuffing on it can be okay, how do we deal with takebacks, and so it takes education, everybody being involved, the manufacturer being a little more careful. Any do you guys are you getting returns? Are you getting complaints? From Coalition Snow, what's going on over there with customers?
Some do we get complaints? Yes.
Par for the course.
We're Coalition Snow. So yeah, I would say that we try to work with the customer, and we will have conversations around what it would mean to return it. And so we'll try to work with them of like, well, would you be comfortable if we offer you a discount, a partial refund on it? What if we gave you a gift card? What if just trying to work with that, because even then you're talking about just the carbon of returning it, right? Like not even the packaging, but what it means to be shipping things back and forth. We also don't ship things immediately. We have a 48-hour window in case the customer changes their mind that the order can be canceled or altered, so that we're not shipping things out too soon. And then one thing that we do when returns come back, if there's been anything that happens to it, it just goes into a bin, and we offer that up to our ambassador team, and that's just because there's nothing wrong with it. So that's what we use. Primarily apparel for. And skis, we started a ski and snowboard buyback program this year. So we will actually buy back skis and snowboards from any brand, and then we are reselling those. And so that's, we're not, the packaging that we're using to ship those back and forth, we're not using any plastic. We're not worried about if it gets scuffed up. It just is what it is, and we're able to offer skis and snowboards at a really low price.
I love that. It's just showing that there are solutions that exist. We can do this, and as Tuma said, it's a shift. This is all a transition. It's just sort of changing your mindset on how we do business. I'm really interested too. I want to kind of jump. We talked about the paper versus plastic. Wes, I want to go to you on this. Recycled content versus recyclable versus biodegradable versus compostable.
Yep.
For the audience, they're like, what do I do? Which one is better? I have an answer for it anytime anybody asks me which one is better, but I want to ask you, take on all those.
Yeah, it's a complex question, and there's not a simple answer, but the way we like to think of it is we are always searching for closed loops. How can we create closed loops? And so, as I mentioned before, one of the reasons we really like fiber is because we recycle it so well in this country already. When it comes to recycled content in plastic, my argument is recycled content is better than using virgin plastic, and we do need to create demand for high quality recycled content. And unless we have products with recycled content in it, there's not enough demand for it. Right now, we do not have the infrastructure in this country to create high quality recycled content plastic. Again, I think that is a private sector problem. We cannot rely on material recovery facilities in every one of our neighborhoods to get clean waste. But again, I do believe that if going to fiber is not an option, I think the next thing to look at is recycled content. Now, you mentioned compostable products. I see more and more compostable plastic products out there. To me, those are very dubious in many cases. Most of the biofilms that are available today are made from genetically modified corn or sugarcane. A lot of those products are covered in pesticides, and the amount of land that it would take to transition our fossil fuel plastics to bioplastics, the last thing I read would be enough land to be bigger than the size of France. It is not a good option. Now, In food applications, I think there is probably a niche in food applications where compostable products make sense. Again, we need the infrastructure to deal with compostable solutions. But again, anytime we can use a waste resource, anytime we can use waste as the feedstock, that's always a better solution. So a used corrugated box becoming the feedstock for a new product is better than a product ending up on the ground and turning back into soil, because then we got to go find a brand new resource to create new products. So anyway, complicated answer, but again, anytime that we can create packaging from waste, that's always better. Recycling is always better than composting.
Good points, Matt. I saw you shaking your head. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, a lot of what was just been said, we totally agree with. Yeah, the compostable plastics are the absolute last end solution. You can get so if you're manufacturing product in Asia, if you're doing apparel, you can get up to 90% recycled content in poly bags. And there are solutions available here in the States where they can be done. It is harder than it is in Europe, where we send our waste bags off to be chipped. They get turned into little chips, and then they can go back to be reused. So, as a brand, if anyone is shipping apparel in plastic, you can find a huge number of suppliers in Asia that will supply that recycled content. Up to about 90% is readily available now. It's not clear, but the whole point is it doesn't need to be clear, because the consumer should never see that bag in the first place. So it doesn't matter what it looks like. If it's brown, grey, green, it means nothing, because the consumer is never going to see it. So we can do it, and retailers can demand that from their brands, that if they do have to ship in a bag, it has to be recycled.
Yeah.
Derek, can I make one more clarification?
Sure.
Because what I see a lot of brands doing is making the decision to put recycled content in packaging that's going direct to consumer, and they feel like they're being more sustainable. To me, that is not a great solution, because if that bag ends up in the environment, the fact that it has recycled content in it has no bearing whatsoever. I mean, it's still going to be problematic if it's in the environment. So when you are looking at your direct to consumer shipments that it's going to end up at somebody's home, to me, that is not a place for recycled content.
Got it. Good advice. Yeah, Tumas?
I know this is a packaging conversation, but I have a question for you. We deal a lot with thermosets, not thermoplastics. We're not able to do a recycled content in the thermoset. So I'm looking for advice from you. We are trying to reduce our dependency on petroleum when we have a Part A and a Part B epoxy. We have a urethane. We have thermosets that it has to start off as virgin. There is no recycled, post-consumer recycled for sure. But what's the bigger evil? Is it still use your virgin thermoset, or bio-based contributors to that?
Well, I probably doesn't sound. I do not have a war on plastics. I think there are plenty of areas of our economy and our world where plastics are a great solution. And when you're talking about skis or ski boots, that's not a single-use item. You might have that for a decade. And so that's an area where I think, you could lean into plastics. I mean, it's highly durable. It's going to last a really long time. You can modify it so well. It's inexpensive, So yes, if over time you can find recycled content that you can put into your products, great. But to me, that's not where the emphasis needs to be. I mean, we are not going to get away from a world with plastics. Plastics are going to be in our world. To me, the issue is single-use plastics.
Yeah, good stuff. So we've just got a few minutes left. So I want to go through. I'm going to offer this up for each of you. Jen, I'll start with you. Whether you want to talk about advice that you have to brands who are starting out on this journey with packaging, or it's about incoming regulation that you have to deal with, or things that you're excited about in this space. You want to tackle any of those, or give us some last thoughts sort of for our audience here?
I would just like to ask all retailers who buy products to have to help smaller brands with a solution around this, and also have the same packaging requirements, because part of this problem is that every retailer requires something different, and that is a place where retailers specifically could come together. And when larger brands and larger retailers help to create these solutions, and it trickles down to smaller brands who are nimble and could immediately implement these things.
Standardization. Good point. Great point. Colleen, how about you?
Technology. And I took a mental note down of, on our own website, can we just add a simple check mark of can we ship this without plastic? Understanding it might still be in plastic in the warehouse. Got to figure out the steps, but you can still recycle business to business. So technology is the one I'm excited about.
Yeah, the technology options for you to improve and engage your customer as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Tumas, how about you?
Yeah, it was really daunting. I mean, building expensive skis in North America just is inherently expensive, and nothing should end up on the floor. So we've been acting as sustainable as possible just by material costs. So that's something that we've just been ingrained to do. But how to get better in manufacturing? What governs a lot of what we do is Kaizen. It's everybody should be familiar with it, and just constant improvements. And we just launched a new line of skis called Kaizen, just to represent this philosophy that drives us. But as new companies in the hall here, just those small little steps of continual improvement, we still suck. We are doing something. It's not great, but we're getting better, and that's kind of why we're here. Is like just continue to do better and better, and at least we can feel a little bit better about that.
Oh, I love that. When it comes to sustainability, there is no company will be able to say, we did it, we're sustainable. We're just always turning dials and pushing on levers. So yeah, really good advice. Wes, final thoughts from you?
I would just say, the outdoor industry, I think, has a real opportunity to lead with sustainability. And I do believe the rest of the supply chain will look to the outdoor industry. So I would just encourage you to think about your transition to sustainable packaging in the same way that you look at your products. Tell these stories. Tell these stories using social media, using your web platforms. Like, the world needs to be inspired by the outdoor industry, and that's what we've tried to do with the New Earth project is really create a platform for storytelling, because this industry does that so well, and you have such a beautiful backdrop to do it with.
So engage with your customers, educate. Matt, how about you?
I was going to follow some of the earlier comments. Standardization, absolute must. Trying to meet 7 different retailer demands in terms of packaging is it's expensive, and actually you end up buying 8 different sizes of cardboard box just to satisfy, and they're virgin ones, just to satisfy 8 different retailers' demands. So standardization, but then collaboration. There's so much really good, useful information, and I'm going to do a little bit of a plug here for the European Outdoor Group, and I know we're not in Europe, but there's some great open source solutions there. Which is free, that in terms of designs of packaging. Why not roll your garment? Why do you need to ship it flat? A fleece product can be rolled. You reduce your plastic, if you do have to use it, by up to 60%. So there is lots of free information out there if you just have a look at the European Outdoor Group Single-Use Plastics Project. And actually, I'm going to do another quick plug, because Scott here is going to wave here. It's from the European Outdoor Group, and he leads the Single-Use Plastic Project. So there is great information out there.
Yeah, there really is. And I know Prana even led a program to eliminate poly bags, and a lot of brands are coming on board. Wes at the New Earth Project has some great solutions for non-plastic solutions as well. So a lot of good opportunities, a lot of good solutions. A lot of it is just about education, awareness, talking with your customers, talking with your team, talking with your suppliers, and continuing to engage with your supply chain. I think we just have a few minutes. Maybe if there's any time for a question, if anybody's got a burning question that we can tackle in our last dying few minutes here. Any thoughts or any concerns, any challenges out there that you want to talk to our experts about? Yeah, go ahead.
So I live somewhere where we recycle cardboard. That's it. And aluminum cans. I realize aluminum cans not going to be used for packaging. You keep talking about being curbside recyclable, because I'm just D2C. I kind of consider that no one's going to, in part because it's not even an option for me unless I want to drive it 3 hours to my closest town. What would you recommend for, other than obviously trying a little bit of everything, talking to people, but is there a better option other than cardboard, like assuming no one recycles? I feel like it's the most
I think this is for me.
Yeah, I think that's for you, Wes. This will be our last one.
If you live, the reality is a lot of humans, a lot of people in the United States live in geographies where the only thing that's curbside recyclable is corrugated boxes. It's when you hear me talk about fiber-based packaging, I am talking about paper packaging, for the most part. So the nice thing about other types of paper packaging, whether it's a curbside recyclable paper mailer or paper like craft paper void fill, all of that can be recycled with a corrugated box. So if in your municipality you can put a corrugated box in your blue bin, you can put anything paper in your blue bin. All of that fiber gets recycled together. And so that's why in direct-to-consumer shipments, we really support everything in that box, including the box, but the product be made from paper. Because you can take the entire shipping container and all the dunnage, put it in the blue bin, and it all gets recycled. It's really easy for the consumer.
So we'll leave it at that if we can. Thank you very much. I know we're out of time. I'm sure all of the panelists will be here or can be reached at their brands prospectively for questions. But thank you guys. Thank you all for being up here, sharing some stories. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it.